Okay, good morning, good day. Hayom Yom 22 of Menachem Av. Very short. My father said, this is the Frierdiker Rebbe speaking about the Rebbe Rashab, one should not recite the morning bruchot, blessings in the morning, before rinsing the mouth in the morning, except on fast days. I often wonder why the Rebbe, our Rebbe, Menachem Mendel, picked these aphorisms from the Frierdiker Rebbe, and how he thought about which ones to pick and when to put them. And I don't have any answers, but
it's about purifying your intent, no?
What?
I wanted to say that maybe he picked this one because it's about purifying your intent and thinking about Hashem early in the morning.
Right, but why for this particular day? Right, yeah. Why that? Why is this day that particular? That's what I'm thinking of. Maybe often we see correlations between what he said in the Yom Yom and the Tanya. So let's keep what you said in mind and see what we find in today's lessons in Tanya. Lessons in Tanya, page 126. Lakuti Amorim. Top of page 222. Okay, we're exploring the meaning of Ashreinu Ma'teiv Chalkeinu, pasuk. How happy is, joyous is, and good is our portion, and our portion is our portion in God. And the Alter Rebbe asks an obvious question: what do you mean? God doesn't have portions. God is not piecemeal. God is the ultimate in singularity. So he gave us the beginning of a discussion about this, and he said that when we speak about God's singularity, as is reflected in the pasuk, ha'oretz v'shamayim ani mole, excuse me, the other way around, ha'shamayim v'oretz ani mole, the heavens and the earth I fill, that's all of God. That refers to God's essence, what we call his mahus, mahu, what he is. What he is in essence, yes, is a singularity. But as we've learned in our long conversations with the Alter Rebbe about letters, he invests that singularity in multiplicity through the various letters, and particularly the names which he is referred to, or which manifest, better said, with names which manifest certain aspects of that singular unity. It brings that singularity into multiplicity. So in essence, he's singular, but in hispashtus, that's the word, in terms of hispashtus, the way he brings himself out of that singularity into multiplicity, we can speak about parts of God. We can speak about numbers, as we are going to do today. Top of page 222. These comings out of his singularity into multiplicity are expressed generally with the metaphor of light. Like light originates in a singular source here for our geocentric domain of planet Earth, where the sun is a singular source, and it comes out in rays. As the rays, as I said yesterday, are refracted through the atmosphere. They're called ha'oras, rays of light. Top of page 222. V'hine ha'ora zu, this ha'ora, this ray function, even though this ray, the manifestation from the singularity into multiplicity, at its highest level, it shines and it spreads out in a manner of unlimitedness. It's an unlimited light. It's called the Or Ein Sof, the light which has no end. So now we understand, once we're speaking about light, we're not speaking about God himself. We're speaking about an emanation or ha'ora from him. And that general ha'ora is called Or, and that Or is called the Or Ein Sof, the light of the Ein Sof, Or Ein Sof. And that shines b'bechinas bli gvul, b'tachlis, with no boundaries, no limitations. The hachres oilemus nelomim, to enliven the concealed worlds, the upper worlds, which are concealed, meaning that we have no visibility into them. And they, well, let's leave it that way. We have no direct visibility into them. In case, and these are worlds which are hidden and which are exalted without end, betachlis, they're infinite. As is written in the section of the Zohar called the Idur Rabbah. So Afal Pichein, nevertheless, now here comes how we can get from that big beam, which the beam, I want to just emphasize, is the beam is already something outside, extruded from, shining from the singular God himself. So that big beam that comes down, it comes down, Afal Pichein, nevertheless, that big beam, it comes down to the Rasa Lamata as it descends down here below, Al Yedei Tzimtzumim Rabim, through many, many different contractions, coverings, condensations, distillations, all different words for the notion of concealing some of that infinite light. The infinite light is there, but it's concealed. And that's important. It doesn't retract. It doesn't go back. It's infinite, but it's infinity that begins to get masked, so to speak, so it appears to be finite. So it comes down through what we call Simsumim Rabim, Lahachiyas and Nivroim, to enliven creatures. Bahayitsurim, Nivroim, he uses the word creatures, but he's specifically meaning, because you'll see the next word, Bahayitsurim. Nivroim are creatures in the world we call Bria, that's why we're called Nivra, Brias. And then in the world of Yitzira, which is a lower level, they're called Yitzurim, formations, reflecting the world of Yitzira. And in the word of Asiya, which is the world when we live, they're called Nasim, things which are done. So technically, they're created, they're formed, and they're done. All referring to creatures, created beings, but referring to the different levels of worlds to which they belong. Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya. So there's tzimtzumim, these many, many tzimtzumim contain, mask, cover, distill the infinite light. And he nechleches derech klal lemispet hariyag. And this light is distilled, diffused, in this case might be a better word because we're going to talk about taking from the singular light and diffusing, like a white source of light comes through a prism diffuses the light. And in revealing and coming out of the prism, it reveals something that you don't see in the singular light, which is the colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, the colors of the rainbow. But those colors of the rainbow are instantiations of a diffused or distilled white light. So that's the mashal, that all of creation, however diffused, distilled it is still embodying within it, albeit with a different characteristic, the white light of Hashem himself. And that white light of Hashem himself in terms of the creation is divided in general to the number of 613. 613. Keneged, which stand for the Tariag mitzvahs Torah, which stand for the 613 mitzvahs of Torah. Now, not stand for is okay, but it's not the best way to translate that, because the implication is that the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah contain the light of the singular God in a diffused, distilled, multifaceted manner. So this is the Tariag mitzvahs of the Torah, the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. Shehein hein Tariag miniham shachas ha'orazu. As he said, these are 613 kinds of drawings down of this ha'ora, of this original singular or Ein Sof, which is infinite. The ha'orazu ma'or Ein Sof Baruch Hu. It's drawing down of the light of the Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu, the light from the infinite. It's interesting. There are two ways that Chassidus looks at the Or Ein Sof. The light, we'll just look at that phrase, Ma'or Ein Sof Baruch Hu. It's a light. It's of this multifaceted light is from a light which is Ein Sof, or it's from God, who radiates the Or Ein Sof, or sometimes called the Or Ein Sof. It's the light of the Infinite One, the love light of the Infinite One. But in this particular mahalach, the way we're going here, there is the one who's beyond infinity meaning beyond number entirely. And then he radiates an effusion, which is number, meaning many, 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 but a number which is beyond number, an infinite range of numbers. And that's called the Or Ein Sof, the light, which itself is infinite. So it can go either way. But here where I'm emphasizing, and I think correctly, the chapter is emphasizing the way in which the singular light becomes diffused into an infinite body of lights, all of which can create the infinity of the unmeasurable, unnumberable items in all the worlds and all the universes. So this ha'ora comes, this singular ha'ora, there's a hamshacha drawing down of this ha'ora from the Or Ein Sof. The infinite light itself comes embodied in multiple lights. The hoya l'neshamas l'ishmas adam, to enliven, to radiate the soul of an adam. The soul of an adam, because the soul of an adam also haklulu remach evorim, also includes 248 limbs, the shasa gidim, and 365 tendons and nerves, and that totals 613. So the 613 primary, let's call them primary emanations, which are subdivided into myriad beyond number, numberless numbering, infinite numbers, is reflected in the Jewish person, who contains 600, the number 613 also, and it's reflected in the Torah, which is the embodiment of 613 as well. And so there's a pasuk that says, Zois Titus Adam. This is the law of a person. It's a place that's referring to the laws of Tuma and Tara, purity and impurity, but that's not relevant at this point. It says, Zois Titus Adam. These are the laws of a person. And the Chazal and Hasidus brings this interpretation that Zois Titus Adam, that the Torah and the Adam, Zois Titus Adam, this is the Torah, this is Adam, are both constructed in the construct of 613, the Torah and the person. And that's sourced in the 613 emanations from the original singular ha'ora. So this is the singular ha'ora 613, the Torah 613, the Jewish person 613. So it comes down lahora nishmas adam, to enliven the source, the soul of a person. Hakalulim, which the soul of a person, of a Jewish person, includes 613 limbs, which is sagidim, and this 365 tendons and ligaments, etc. Ashabevoida, which in terms of what's that all about, we utilize all 613. Each one of the 613 components of us corresponds to one of the 613 mitzvahs. And that's the reason that we're created with 613, because we've been created to serve God with all of our 613 abilities in order to instantiate the presence of God through the 613 mitzvahs down here below. And this is the ha'ora zu, comes down below, this ha'ora, this light, this beam of light comes down below. L'chol hanevroyim b'hayitzurim v'nasim, again, through the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. Shetachlis kulon, which the whole purpose of all of them, hu ha'adam, is the Jewish human being down here below to instantiate and bring God's presence down through the 613 mitzvahs, kenoida, as is known. V'hine mitzvah zer, this is starting a new paragraph in the classic editions, bolded. V'hine mitzvah zer, this number 613, ubedera klal, is a generalization, because there's a subdivision as well in the there are infinite number of parts. 613 is the first major instantiation and division. So it's a klal, it's a generality which is going to hold infinitely more unmeasurable, unnumberable pieces. Avodera prat, so that's general. But when you come to specificities, in a specific way, in a kol mitzvah v'mitzvah mishalakas lepratim rabim la'in case. Every mitzvah, each and every mitzvah, is divided into many details without any number. For instance, we have a mitzvah to keep the Shabbos. I mean, the first level that comes to mind, there are 39 malachas, lamed tes malachas in Shabbos. That's 39. And each of them have many, many details. So that goes through and is indicative of the entire Torah. The 365 major mitzvahs, positive and negative, subdivide into more and more, lahen kates v'taklis, without any end. Lahen hen gufi halachas pratias. And that's each one of those subdivisions is a specific halacha, shebechol mitzvah, which is contained within each mitzvah, she'ein lehem mispar. And these halachas and their branches have no end. And they're continually evolving also, particularly when it comes to, different cases, different new applications to new technologies, etc. They infinitely spread out as the need for understanding them in a particular context occurs. La'in mispar, without any number. As is written, there's a pasuk in Shir HaShirim. It says, Shishim hemo malchus. 60 are the queens. 60 are the queens. And this is interpreted by our sages, Ein Samech Masechtos. 60 queens are the 60 Masechtas of the Tanya, of the Talmud. The 60 Masechta Brachos, Masechtas Nida, Pasachim, etc. All of the 60. So this 60, the Chazal are giving. The Chazal, who are not learning Hasidus, right, but they're giving us a foundation for which we can see and understand things. They understood that first of all, Mishlei itself, well, I'm talking about Mishlei, but they understood that this was, although true, it's in other words, there are 60 levels, that this is reflected in the fact that there are 60 tractates of the Talmud. And the Shir HaShirim goes on and says, Va'olamas ein mispar, 60 queens, and you could say, and maidens without number. And the maidens without number, hein ha-halachas. Because I'll tell these are the halachas which derive from the 60 tractates of the Talmud. These are divided into myriad without number. Shehein hamshachas haratzon ha'elyon, all of which are the drawings down of the supernal will. So what do we have from this so far? We have the singularity of Hashem is manifest in the multiplicity. He takes himself and he elicits himself through the various names that he has into multiplicity. And this multiplicity and divinity and singularity infuses all of reality through the 613 mitzvahs and all their branches. And all their innumerable branches are all drawings down, ultimately, of God's supernal will. And similarly, since we said Torah's Adam, that the Torah is 613 and the human being, the Jewish human being, is 613 parts. So the neshama of a person is also constructed in the same way. Can he call her neshama shebaolam? All the neshamas of the world, they were all included in Adam Arishon. So this is another model, right? The sun we used in many places. All of humanity, and he's describing those aspects which pertain to the Jewish humanity, all the way back to all of it goes back to a singular source in that instantiation in the physical plane, which is the first human being, Adam Arishon. And in general, his soul was divided into the number 613, 248 limbs, 365 tendons, etc. But when it comes to specifics, the sparks are divided into, actually, the ha'ora, the ray of the singular ray is divided into sparks without number. And just a little bit of digression, spark is a very interesting mashal, and I'm saying it because it's, when I first heard it in Hasidus, I said, well, what's a spark? If you stand by a fire and you see it sparks, they're little pieces, but every one of the little pieces contains the fire. Otherwise, it's not a spark. It doesn't have fire in it. A spark can be dangerous. A spark can light another fire. So the 613, they're called sparks because although, and this is the key to the metaphor, although they're separate, they contain with them part of the divinity itself. The fire of divinity is carried with it. So every spark in our soul is carrying with it the divine light. And there are generally 613 sparks without, and then these sparks come off and they spark off without number. Shehein neshamas kol Yisrael. And these sparks without number are all the myriad of Jewish souls that have ever been and which are and will be. The Yemesa Avos from the time of the Avos, and then the Shvatim, Ad Bias HaMashiach until the time of Mashiach, Yad B'Klal, including the time of Mashiach. She'akuyim, and at that time, at the coming of Mashiach, will be fulfilled what's written, V'ha'oya misveh b'nei Yisrael k'chayil ha'yoyim, that the number of the children of Israel will be like the sand of the sea. Asher le yimad, which can't be measured, v'le yisaper meroiv, and can't be counted because of its vastness. This is the sands of the sea, an example of numberless number. In other words, you can pick up each grain, but you'll never ever count them because it's a range of numbers which is infinite. So this is the idea of infinity invested in the finite. God himself, yes, is singular. So how can we speak about parts? That was our question. Because he sparks off, so to speak, and little pieces which contain his essence, and these are numberless. And this is the Or Ein Sof, the light which is infinite. And that's today's Tanya.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I have a tiny question.
I bet it's tiny. Let's see.
It says that each mitzvah gets divided into myriads of other mitzvahs.
Yeah.
Is this because the way we apply it, each individual applies it in his own life? Is that what we mean?
Well, yes, but really, no. It will be, ultimately, it's how it's applied in life. It's the halachas. Each of the 613 gives off branches, which are the halachas, the various. First of all, we take Shabbos, right? And there are 39 malachas, I said before. And those 39 have a number of details to them. And that goes on infinitely and infinitely. And then over time, from those basic 613, come various novel cases which have to be applied, and the halacha has to be ruled. And that may never have yet occurred in history. So those are also branches of those things. Ultimately, you're right, it's how they're applied. But what he's talking about here is how they're understood as we learn halachas from the roots to the branches.
Are all mitzvahs like that? I mean, I know Shabbos is super complicated and has seemingly endless, like Lulav and Esrog, I guess.
Sure, Lulav and Esrog. Go. It's interesting. Go and just open a Shulchan Aruch and look about the halachas of the Lulav.
There's got to be a halacha that's simpler. It can't be true for every single mitzvah. What about washing hands in the morning?
Well, maybe that's a branch itself of some of mitzvah associated with purity. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
It could be a branch. It could be an end branch. You know.
Oh, all right. I'll try to think up a mitzvah that's super simple and.
Well, but then you could think about it. But then what you have to do to discover is that an end point of a thicker branch. You have to go look in, you have to go look in Shulchan Aruch and see where that comes from. Yeah, but the actual action that you take is an end point. The question here is, where did that end point come from? And it's like walking out. The end point is like walking out to the end of the branch. But if you walk backwards, you got two places, and you walk backwards and backwards, you're getting closer and closer to the root.
I guess the question for me was that is every single mitzvah so branched out? It's not so straightforward and simple. Every of the 613 has so many different as so much that you could say it's endless different halachas to it.
Halachas, that's what it says. Halachas and misfor. Yeah. Paths, halacha is a path. And there are paths without number. The Torah is constantly going through in new interpretations in each and every generation. All of which have to be Torah, have to be rooted in what came before. That's our Masorah. If it's not rooted in what came before, then it's not halacha. It's just an idea. So every new endpoint is rooted in something else previous, and from the now endpoint, there can be things which have to go, discoveries or situations that need going back to that. So it's a truth. It's a truth. Now, you will find endpoints at any particular time. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Or actually two. So the first question is, when we talk about 613 mitzvot, most of us understand that those are not applicable to all of us at all times, and certainly not without the temple. So what does that mean? I don't know what percentage of those mitzvot we're able to keep right now. I suspect
most of them we can't. The majority are dependent not only on the temple but on Eretz Yisrael as well.
So, well, I live in Eretz Yisrael, so I guess there are a few more, but still,
yeah.
Let's say it's maybe only 1/3 or less, certainly less than half. So what does that mean in terms of if we're holistically, from the perspective of being made from Hashem created us, but we don't fulfill all of those, but we're comprised of them? Does that mean that
that's
all
a good question.
not all? Like, what does that mean?
It means that though we don't fulfill them all physically, we are all still comprised of them. And the emblematic one that comes to mind is, and you probably heard this, that's quite widespread in many Maimorim, is Asale Mikdash v'Shechanti b'Soichem. Make for me a temple, and my Shekhinah will dwell within it. But it doesn't say within it, it says within them, right? So we are not building a temple outside, but we are building a temple inside. And with all the details, and it's right in Chassidus, many, many details. What's the shulchan inside of us? What's the menorah? Menorah is one that probably you've heard a lot. What's the menorah inside of us? So they all apply all the time, although not all the time physically. They all apply, at least spiritually.
Even ones that would seem more obscure, like going to one of six cities of refuge, which some of them are.
All of them.
In other words, they all apply to us, but it could be on a spiritual realm that we don't yet understand.
Well, it is on a spiritual realm, and the fact we don't understand it is we just haven't learned it, or it hasn't yet been written about in Chassidus. But the answer is yes.
Okay, that's helpful. That's really helpful to understand.
Yeah.
The other was just a thought about this whole journey into the infinity of numbers, and everything comes from let's say a general, a klal, into like such tremendous diversity that it's a myriad and it can't be counted. This is just my thought. It's not like I learned this anyplace. I think that part of what being aware of that is to become aware of the infinity of Hashem. That it's one way for us to try to grasp what we can't grasp. And so therefore, how Hashem created the world is as a reflection of infinity. This gives us like a window to have the opportunity to say, wow, that's like beyond, but that's really Hashem.
I think that's a beautiful ubechein. I mean, so what? When you hold something finite, you're holding a manifestation of something which is ultimately infinite. Everything is like that. Yeah. You could almost say the finite is the illusion. The reality is the infinite. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Yeah, okay.
Yes,
yeah.
I like the finite is the illusion and the infinity is the real thing, right?
Yeah.
The infinite is the real only. There's only Hashem. Ein od milvado.
You got it. Beautiful. Anything else while we're elsing? All right. So Mitzvah Hashem, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thank you.